Hi, welcome to my Fall of Anne Boleyn countdown videos. I'm Claire Ridgway. I run the Anne Boleyn Files website. You might also know me from my books on Tudor history, including the Fall of Anne Boleyn countdown, which is just over there. And also I co-authored with Claire Cherry a biography of George Boleyn. George Boleyn, Tudor poet, courtier and diplomat. Okay, so we're in the year 1536, in the month of May. On this day, 1536, the 10th of May, so this was just 10 days after the first arrest, the Grand Jury of Middlesex convened, Middlesex being a county in England. Their foreman, Giles Heron, who was son-in-law of the late Sir Thomas More, announced that they had decided that there was sufficient evidence to suggest that Queen Anne Boleyn, Sir Henry Norris, Sir Francis Weston, William Brereton, Mark Smeaton, and Anne's brother, George Boleyn, Lord Rochford, were guilty of the alleged crimes carried out at Hampton Court Palace and Whitehall Palace, both being in the county of Middlesex. The accused were to be indicted and sent to trial. Now, two other men had been arrested and taken to the Tower of London and imprisoned there. Poet, courtier and diplomat Sir Thomas Wyatt the Elder and Sir Richard Page, a gentleman of the Privy Chamber. However, there was no mention at all of these two men, Wyatt and Page, in the indictments that the Grand Jury of Middlesex drew up on this day in 1536. So what were the charges laid against Queen Anne Boleyn and the five men by this Middlesex Grand Jury? Well, I'm going to give you a link to read the indictment for yourself, as it's rather long, very detailed, gives dates, offences, all sorts. So it's very, very long, too long to read out to you. But I'm going to kind of read out a summary, a list of what the Queen and the men were charged with. So Queen Anne Boleyn was charged with entertaining malice against the king, her husband, and following her lustful desires, procuring her husband's servants to be her adulterers and concubines by base conversations and kisses, touchings, gifts and other infamous incitations, so that some of them yielded to her vile provocations. Those, by the way, are not my words, they're the words of the indictments. Seducing and committing adultery with Sir Henry Norris, William Brereton, Sir Francis Weston and Mark Smeaton. Seducing her own brother, George Boleyn, Lord Rochford, to violate her, alluring him with her tongue in the said George's mouth and the said George's tongue in hers, and also with kisses, presents and jewels, so that he violated and carnally knew her. She was also accused of encouraging the men with gifts, conspiring the death and destruction of the king, her husband, agreeing to marry one of the men after the king's death, never having loved the king, causing harm and peril to the king through her malice and adultery, committing treasons in contempt of the crown and of the issue and heirs of the said king and queen by her actions. Then we go on to the five men. So that was just the queen, and that's what she was being charged with in the indictments. The five men were accused, of course, of violating her and plotting with her to kill their master, King Henry VIII. Now, although various dates were mentioned in the Middlesex indictment for the offences of the Queen and these five men, Historian Eric Ives has mentioned that of the dates in the Middlesex and Kent indictments of these dates, they actually don't make sense. 3/4 of them don't make sense and can be challenged, because either the Queen or the man concerned was not at the place listed, or it was impossible for them to be there. You know, Anne was on one of the dates, you know, still confined before being churched, you know, after a miscarriage or after the birth of Elizabeth, or she wasn't at the palace, or the man wasn't at the palace. 3/4 of the dates are just impossible. But of course, this was kind of covered in the indictments by a kind of phrase which said diverse days before and since, and several times before and after. So very sort of vague language there. Now, the language used in the indictments was designed to shock those who'd be attending the trials. You know, I've shared some of the language with you already, but Anne was described as having frail and carnal appetites, using vile provocations, alluring her brother with her tongue in his mouth and his in hers. It's all very shocking. I mean, it's even shocking for us kind of reading it today. It gives you a sort of bad taste in that sort of reading them. Imagine how shocking it was to a 16th century jury. It was all very shocking, very lurid, very detailed. So yes, it was chosen, the language was chosen carefully to shock. Now, also on this day in 1536, Sir William Kingston, who was Constable of the Tower of London, was ordered to bring up the bodies. And of course, that phrase has been used by Hilary Mantel for her novel about this period, about Thomas Cromwell and the Fall of Anne Boleyn. And that he was ordered to bring up the bodies of Sir Francis Weston, Knight, Henry Norris, Esquire, William Brereton, Esquire, and Mark Smeaton, gentlemen, at Westminster on Friday next, after 3 weeks of Easter, i.e. the 12th of May, because that would be the date of their trial. Now, this order was sent before the Kent Grand Jury met, and may even have been sent before the Middlesex Grand Jury met on this day in 1536. So you kind of wonder if these men ever had any, chance, really. You know, this was done before the indictments were drawn up, before it was decided that there was evidence to take them to trial. Now, Sir John Dudley wrote to Lady Lisle on the 10th of May to update her of goings-on at court, because the Lisles, of course, were in Calais and they had servants in London who were to keep them up to date. And Sir John Dudley wrote, "Is sure there is no need to write the news, for all the world knows them by this time. Today, Mr. Norris, Mr. Weston, William Brereton, Mark, and Lord Rochford were indicted, and on Friday they will be arraigned at Westminster. The Queen herself will be condemned by Parliament." I find it interesting there that he says the Queen herself will be condemned by Parliament. It doesn't just say tried, he says condemned. Now, he was wrong about George Boleyn, Lord Rochford. He was not tried with the other men by the Commission of Oyer and Terminer that had been set up to try them. George Boleyn was tried on the 15th of May, the same day as his sister, by a jury of peers, just like his sister, the Queen. So that's what happened on this day in 1536. I'm sure you'll agree with me that the language of the indictments very, very shocking. And of course, you can read the full indictment at the link that I'll give you, as it's just too long to share. So we're getting nearer and nearer to Anne's execution, and events are moving very, very quickly. And I hope that this series of videos is giving you an idea of just how quickly, Anne fell, just how quickly things moved against her. I'll be back tomorrow with another event from 1536 for you. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.